So to combat our propensity to be flipping channels all the time and to try to maintain audience flow, there's several different strategies that TV programmers and networks can use. And we're just going to kind of touch on just a couple. Strip programming refers to where the show is going to air at the same time slot every single day or maybe once a week. Examples of the daily time slot, of course, daily soap operas, news shows, etc. For the once a week time slot, you're looking at primetime dramas, sitcoms, reality shows, etc. Counter-programming actually seeks to attract the audience to one's own station or network by offering programs that are different from the competition. So for example, if you're using counter-programming, if you're on Fox, you might run American Idol while CBS is running CSI. So completely different genres, completely different types of programs to try to attract audiences. Block programming kind of groups similar programs together one after another. And an example might be NBC a while back kind of experimented with Law & Order, and then Law & Order SVU being on the same night for a while. Those are actually even the same franchises, not just the same genre. And then they also had, a while back in the 90s, Must-See TV, which was on, I believe, Thursday nights, and they had a massive block of sitcoms, and then all of a sudden they had ER. So the sitcoms all together would be an example of block programming. Another strategy is the strong lead-in, which attempts to attract the maximum initial audience by starting a particular time slot with a very strong program in hopes of retaining the audience for subsequent programs. So you might show a program such as 24, which was pretty popular on Fox there for a while, and then a newer show which might not be as popular, such as Fringe. I believe actually they line, Fox runs House and then Fringe, and House is pretty well established, whereas Fringe is a fairly recent show. Another strategy is the hammock, which takes two strong shows and puts a weaker show in between them. So you might have 24 on to start with, and then House a little bit later on, but in between them you're running Fringe. Now, I honestly don't know what the ratings are for Fringe, so I'm not trying to harp on Fringe. It's a sci-fi program. It might even be really good, but it's just pretty sure it's not as popular as, say, House and 24, which unfortunately 24 is not even on anymore. Some general programming theories there's two that kind of hold up, and they kind of operate at different ends of the spectrum. There's the theory that says that people are going to watch whatever's on TV. They're going to watch the least objectionable program rather than turning off the TV. Basically, we're too lazy to turn the TVs off, so we're probably going to flip around until we land on something. And that something is going to be at least good enough to keep us from turning the TV off. Whereas appointment television says that viewers seek out more popular programs and are actually loyal viewers, and they will look for a particular program whenever it's scheduled. How long that's going to last, that's anybody's guess. So there's kind of two different theories there, and I think that they really kind of, though they're different theories, they do explain a lot of viewer behavior, and I don't think that there's any room for one to be the dominant theory. I believe there's validity to both of those, and we might talk about more of that in our discussion. That might be a discussion question. Why on earth are there so many reality programs? Because they are very popular and they are very inexpensive. They cost less than $500,000 per hour to produce, which is about 1/3 the cost of producing a comedy or a drama. Looking at local program offerings, for television at least, most local TV programming takes the form of news. News. News provides a valuable community service, but it's also profitable for the local stations as it accounts for as much as 50% of their sales revenue. And so aside from news, local stations really produce very few programs. They might have maybe a local talk show or public affairs shows, but typically news is the dominant focus of the local affiliates. As far as local radio goes, really it's much less local than it used to be because there's less local ownership of the stations. They're more and more being owned by groups. And really a DJ can be at a remote location and they can cut all their voice inserts in about an hour or so, voice inserts for an entire hour's worth of radio programming can be done in a few minutes. I'd be interested to hear from the gentleman who is a DJ. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I'd be interested to hear how he operates and how much of his time is actually spent on air versus in the studio cutting his voice inserts. And typically radio stations at least, are using a pretty strict set of pretty strict set list of songs. Looking at syndicated programming, lastly, there's basically two kinds of syndicated programming that we'll be concerned with. And an example of what is known as first-run syndication. First of all, I guess we should define syndicated programming. It's a programming either TV or radio, and when I think of syndication, I mostly think of TV. But these programs are sold to individual stations in many markets. And there's first-run syndication, which is a syndicated program that's essentially sold fresh out of the box. It's a brand new program. It has few repeats. It might have a couple of reruns here and there, but an example would be the Oprah show, which I believe is still airing on CBS, excuse me. And so first run programming is new programming in syndication, whereas off-network programming, those shows are completely made up of repeats and reruns. And some examples just off the top of my head are Friends and Simpsons and Frasier. There's tons of examples. So basically, first run versus off-network is new programming versus reruns when it comes to talking about syndication. And then a syndicated transaction involves the station purchasing the exclusive broadcast rights for the program in that particular designated broadcast market.